In the bustling city of Verona, where the streets echoed with the sounds of feuding households, Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet found themselves entangled in a love that defied the boundaries of their family's hatred. Romeo, a dreamer with a poet's heart, wandered through the cobblestone streets, disillusioned by the world around him. His family, the Montagues, had long been engaged in a bitter feud with the Capulets, and he yearned for a love that transcended their animosity. Meanwhile, Juliet, a tender-hearted and free-spirited young woman, lived a sheltered life within the walls of her family's opulent estate. The Capulets, proud and noble, held their grudge against the Montagues as if it were an heirloom to be passed down through generations. One fateful evening, Verona was ablaze with preparation for the grand Capulet ball. Romeo, seeking solace and distraction from his melancholy, decided to attend the event in disguise, donning a mask to conceal his true identity. As Romeo stepped into the magnificent ballroom, his eyes were immediately drawn to Juliet, who stood amidst a sea of elegantly dressed guests. Her beauty took his breath away, and for a moment, the world seemed to fade into the background, leaving only her radiant presence. Juliet, too, felt an inexplicable connection to the mysterious stranger. Her heart fluttered as their eyes met across the room, and she felt an undeniable pull towards him. Unbeknownst to either of them, destiny had woven its intricate threads, entwining their lives in a love that would shake Verona to its core. In the midst of the revelry, Romeo summoned the courage to approach Juliet, their identities still shrouded in secrecy. They exchanged playful banter and shared stolen glances, their hearts dancing to the rhythm of a love that was both forbidden and irresistible. As the night wore on, Romeo and Juliet found themselves alone in the moonlit garden, their souls bared to one another. In this sacred space, shielded from the prying eyes of their feuding families, they confessed their deepest desires and fears. It was here, beneath the starry sky, that they vowed their love and sealed their fate. The following day, with the weight of their family's enmity heavy upon them, Romeo sought the guidance of Friar Lawrence, a wise and trusted confidant. Recognizing the sincerity of their love, the friar agreed to marry them in secret, hoping that their union would bring an end to the senseless feud. In the hidden sanctuary of the friar's cell, Romeo and Juliet exchanged their vows, pledging their eternal devotion to one another. The world outside seemed distant and inconsequential as they reveled in the bliss of their newfound union. However, Verona's streets were not immune to the fires of conflict. A fiery clash erupted between Romeo's loyal friend, Mercutio, and Juliet's hot-tempered cousin, Tybalt. In the chaos that ensued, Mercutio fell victim to Tybalt's blade, and Romeo, consumed by grief and a thirst for vengeance, exacted his revenge upon Tybalt. The Prince of Verona, weary of the ongoing bloodshed, declared his judgment upon Romeo. In a cruel twist of fate, he banished Romeo from the city, exiling him to a life without Juliet's embrace. Separated by circumstance, Romeo and Juliet's love was put to the ultimate test. The days turned into nights, and their hearts ached with longing. Desperate to be reunited with his beloved, Romeo sought solace in the arms of darkness, venturing into the shadows of Verona under the cover of night. In his quest for a glimmer of hope, Romeo sought the counsel of Friar Lawrence once more. The friar, ever the beacon of wisdom, devised a plan to reunite the lovers. He gave Romeo a vial containing a sleeping potion that would make Juliet appear lifeless for a time. Once she awoke, they could escape together to a place where their love could flourish without fear. Heart pounding with equal parts hope and trepidation, Romeo returned to Verona, determined to rescue his beloved and elope to a new life. Friar Lawrence sent a messenger to deliver a letter to Romeo, detailing the plan and urging him to hasten to the Capulet tomb as soon as Juliet awoke. Meanwhile, Juliet, filled with anticipation, prepared to drink the sleeping potion that would grant her temporary reprieve from a world that couldn't understand their love. With trembling hands and a prayer on her lips, she swallowed the elixir, allowing its effects to wash over her. News of Juliet's sudden death spread like wildfire through the streets of Verona. The Capulets, racked with grief, laid their beloved daughter to rest in the family tomb, unaware of the truth behind her slumber. The city mourned the loss of its brightest star as the news reached Romeo's ears. However, a series of unfortunate events conspired to keep the friar's letter from reaching Romeo. The messenger, caught in the crossfire of the feuding families, was detained and unable to deliver the crucial message. It seemed that fate itself was testing the lovers' resolve. Romeo, unaware of the friar's plan, received word of Juliet's supposed death. His heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, and he knew that life without her was unbearable. Determined to join his beloved in the afterlife, he made a fateful decision. With a heavy heart and a mind clouded by grief, Romeo returned to Verona, determined to bid a final farewell to Juliet. He ventured into the depths of the Capulet tomb, where his beloved lay in eternal rest. In the dim light, he saw her delicate form and felt a bittersweet mixture of joy and sorrow. As Romeo knelt beside Juliet's lifeless body, his trembling hand drew forth a vial of poison. With tear-filled eyes, he whispered his undying love for her one last time and drank the lethal potion. The poison coursed through his veins, extinguishing the flame of his life. Just as Romeo's final breath escaped his lips, Juliet stirred from her slumber. Her eyes fluttered open, and she saw her beloved, pale and lifeless, before her. Horror and despair gripped her heart as she realized what had transpired. In that moment, Juliet's love transcended the boundaries of life and death. She could not fathom a world without Romeo, and so, with a resolve as unyielding as her love, she reached for Romeo's dagger. With one swift motion, she pierced her own heart, choosing to be with him in death rather than face a life without him. The tragic scene that unfolded in the Capulet tomb would forever be etched into the annals of Verona's history. The news of the star-crossed lovers' untimely demise spread through the city like wildfire, reaching the ears of the grief-stricken Capulets and Montagues. The feuding families, confronted with the devastating consequences of their long-standing hatred, were shattered. The weight of their animosity suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the immeasurable loss they had suffered. The Prince of Verona, filled with regret, vowed to put an end to the senseless feud that had claimed the lives of two young souls. United in their shared grief, the Montagues and Capulets came together to mourn the loss of Romeo and Juliet. They laid their differences aside and built a memorial to honor the tragic lovers, a symbol of the price paid for their blind hatred. From that day forward, Verona's streets echoed with a newfound sense of peace. The feuding families, forever altered by the tragedy, vowed to cherish the memory of Romeo and Juliet and to ensure that their love would not be in vain. And so, the story of Romeo and Juliet, a tale of love, passion, and sacrifice, became woven into the fabric of Verona's history. Their names were whispered across generations, a reminder that love knows no boundaries and that hatred only leads to destruction. The legacy of Romeo and Juliet served as a cautionary tale, a timeless reminder to embrace love, to bridge the divides that separate us, and to recognize the preciousness of life. Verona stood as a testament to the power of their love, forever honoring the memory of two young souls who dared to defy the world for the sake of their love.